at the Reformed Church in America to give our opening invocation and prepare our hearts in prayer.
Thank you, Deepika. Friends, grace and peace to you from God our Father and Christ Jesus our Lord. We are here in the name of the Lord Jesus, whose ministry to God's people was one of healing power and saving grace. And he promised those who believe in him that he would be with them always. And his promise is true. Christ is present among us, still to heal and to make us whole. So let us give thanks to the Lord. Let us pray. Most gracious God, source of all healing, we give thanks to you for all your gifts, but most of all, for the gift of your Son, through whom you gave and still give health and salvation to all who believe. As we wait in expectation for the coming of that day when suffering and pain shall be no more, help us by your Holy Spirit to be assured of your power in our lives and to trust in your eternal love. Through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend JP, for your heartfelt prayer and your words that Christ's presence is with us today and for his blessed assurance in our lives. Those definitely resonate in our hearts and minds. Just a few housekeeping issues before we start. As you can see on the screen, we have 4 questions, and we also have a question and answer segment after each of those question segments. It will just be about 3 to 4 minutes, but if you can, please feel free to send your questions via the chat option, which is at the bottom of your screen. And time permitting, we hope to answer all your questions. If there are any more, please send us those, and we can share those with our panelists. So before any further ado, let's begin. We are honored to have today individuals from our cherished institutional members, church organizations, and Christian Medical College and Hospital in Vellore. These organizations have for centuries served faithfully and been a channel of excellence, especially in education, volunteerism, and transformational medical ministry. Our first question deals with how the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the landscape of our faith community interaction. A crisis can bring new opportunities. What are some positive outcomes that our institutional members and faith-based communities have gleaned during the coronavirus pandemic? To start our presentation, we have the Reverend Dr. Benjamin Chan, who is Area Director for East and South Asia at the American Baptist International Ministries.
Hello, gentlemen. I would like to share my note in the screen with you. And when I am doing it, I just want to thank the lower board to organizing such a wonderful forum that we can, in fact, exchange our ideas. I'm pretty sure that we are all in this COVID crisis, and we walked very similar journeys, but because of our constituency may be different. So our observation and reflection may be different, or in fact, I think we have a lot of common issues that we need to address as well. First of all, I in fact came to be aware of the COVID situation pretty early. Although at that time, we have not named them, or the virus was not named as COVID-19 yet. It is as early as, in fact, I would say informally in December, because we have been hearing some getting some news from different channels saying that, well, there's something cooking in China. We do not know what it is. And at that time, we were thinking that it is a SARS again. You know, you remember SARS more than 10 years ago? So because of my background from Hong Kong, I've been in the States for more than 30 years now, but I keep a very close connection with friends in Hong Kong. So the SARS experience is pretty much, in my knowledge. So we were thinking it's SARS, so we do not actually pay a lot of attention to it. But it is until late January, I received a call from a Christian initiative NGO, the Empathy Foundation, and telling me that we do not know what this virus is, but it is spreading. So we were very concerned. And then Empathy Foundation, basically at that time, I still remember it is January 25th after midnight, and said, Ben, we have you and our Canada and US network, church network. You all need to come to help. Can you help us to do fundraising and also go to buy protective masks and coveralls and other medical supply to help us so that the virus can be, contained. So I'm very thankful that once I get the mission, I contacted my good friends. We have a good friend here in the Asian Pacific Forum too, that we just mobilized the mainline denominations of Canada and US and start the fundraising and also looking for the medical supply. The fundraising is pretty impressive. In fact, within a month or so, I would say, we already received more than 100,000 US, and mainly from the members of the Asia Pacific Forum, which are the mainline denominations of Canada and US. And in fact, it already shows you the power and the network of church connections, even in the beginning of a crisis, which is I'm thankful to, of all the good friends in the forum. But in fact, the crisis, it is a crisis because it is January and February. I look for every place that I can get to, no provision at all. Everything sold out. In fact, I contacted my friends in India to look for N95 masks. Okay, so I just basically run like crazy. Okay, but more important reflection is not only to raise funds and look for medical supply, but in fact, it's the understanding of the virus. I remember from very beginning, I have been communicating, this virus with all my networks, including those in India. Since most of us, have connection with India, I will focus on India. But I would say, finally, I have about 10 WhatsApp chat groups working on this issue, basically sharing information and trying to help each other out. And so I would like to lift up a few issues in reflection that I have seen in this communication. This is really more Protestant church communication, but you can apply it to faith-based communication, wider faith-based communication too. First of all, as faith-based organization, especially we have a lot of professional, Christians or professional backgrounds, like many of you, who should be very aware of, when we are plunged into such a crisis, what is a proper way to respond? The answer is no. In fact, we Christians, especially, I would say some of the very bad examples from pastors. I'm a pastor, okay, I'm theologically trained. We are not equipped. So when we plunge into the crisis, we'll fall back to what we know, but do not know and are not aware of what we do not know. I still remember when I share all this information, I receive a lot of misinformation. I have videos showing, not in one country, but several places. In fact, later on from the US as well. Pastors basically saying that don't be afraid of the virus, using our Christian language. Jesus' blood is more powerful. Just get together, and then I see all the members get together, hug each other, has a close proximity, continue the meeting. I was scared, okay, because I learned much earlier from the experience of China from late January And we're getting into March and then later on April. I was scared. Why, we are supposed to be a very responsible community as a faith-based organization. Why are we so, what should I say, irresponsible, I would say. In fact, at that time, I used very heavy language to help my colleagues, church circle colleagues, to say we need to look at it very carefully. That brings me to a very important reflection. That is, I think Christians of professional background, medical background, especially like many of you, and mission hospitals, including CMs of Valor, you're the most reputable hospital in Christian hospital in India. We have a role to play in pastoral training and theological education. That is, although it is a standard topic that in seminary we talk about the relationship of faith and science, but many times, we are not there yet. We may have a course studying about it, but we don't have a ongoing, continued education and helping the faith-based community, especially pastors and leaders, to keep a balance of, on the one hand, we trust the guidance and power of our Lord Jesus, we trust God, but on the other hand, we respect science, and we have, all of us know about the situation in the US. Basically is, we plunge into a chaotic situation because of the lack of understanding and respect of science. So that is, in fact, I would say, if one lesson that I learned and I would recommend to our faith-based organization is that in the pastoral training and theological education, faith and science has to be a topic that is lifted up so that we will not have crazy response and behavior in times of crisis. Second reflection, I'm not going to go into details one by one, you can see it, but I will try to focus on the main points. That is, in a faith-based community, there are a lot of activities and things that we do and we value. But church, especially I'm talking about Protestant church, is also a, entity that has to maintain its existence, right? So especially church, we depend on a lot of physical gathering. We need people to get together to generate a kind of religious, proximity and relationship, and also generate resource, money resource, everything resource. So when we get into a crisis, in fact, I have seen that we divert ourselves from the most important priority thing, that is human life, to other thing that is asking, okay, when can we meet again? Or why, people do not come to the church, how do they give? All those questions. But I think from my observation or the connection with different churches, the earlier the church, first, to respect lives as the priority, human lives, over any church hierarchy, form, and structure, the better they can handle it. That means they're not denying and distract themselves from protecting human life. Second, the more they can accept a new form of Christian activities and communication, the better. And I will namely, in this particular situation, the earlier the church can accept virtual reality, in fact, is a real human reality. That means many complaints, oh, we cannot meet, we cannot hug each other, we cannot be at the church, church building. The earlier they can overcome that, misconception, and the earlier they can see that even like through Zoom conference, WhatsApp, they meet a real human being, even we do not touch each other physically. So how do we prepare ourselves to say the church is not the building? The church is not a standard form of meeting. The church is the assembly of God's people, human. That is the real. So I'm still advocating, saying that we are not going back to the pre-COVID lifestyle. There's no way. even if there's vaccine or whatever. I mean, this COVID crisis basically changed the entire understanding of the world and human life and how the church should function. I am advocating for we should help ourselves, not only to say accept it, but transform ourselves to the post-COVID era. The earlier, the more maturely, more completely, the better. I'm not saying that moving in the new virtual reality and post-COVID era is a simple solution. I do not mean that at all. There are a lot of implications, right? We have been doing church in such a way. So what does it mean in a new way, right? So I will call it a paradigm shift. It is a paradigm shift that, in fact, challenge the church, in fact, give a chance to the church to better understand ourselves and also better serve our neighbors, those who need our help. And in fact, I would say, better understand God is more than all static form of what belief church is. We have done a lot of, American Baptists, I serve the Mission Board International Ministries of American Baptists. We've done a lot of, I would say not so wise things, but thank God, keep learning from the lesson. We learned something which is good, and we have done it successfully. I would say the first thing is that we take, as I said, the virus seriously. I have been from January advocating for all the rules. If you look at my Facebook, in the note I sent you, you have my you don't have my Facebook page, but you can go to my journal and see some. I have been advocating for wearing masks from the very beginning. Okay, many of you are medical professionals. You understand all this. Washing hands, social distancing, and so forth. Okay. So the point is not really wearing masks. The point is why I value my limited freedom, my personal freedom, than protecting the lives of the person next to me, sitting next to me, or people I love. So going back to the same reflection that I mentioned a little bit, human life is a priority. If not, why Jesus Christ come to die for us? Second, serving the neighbors. I would say that I have seen a wonderful, witness of many of my church friends. And in my notes, I show you a link that you can go to the video, that this is not the time to talk about how to evangelize or how you do it this right, but love and help in a concrete way. Encourage them, give them emotional support, give them counseling, provide food, provide healthcare kits. I still remember I was struggling for masks and running like crazy, but you have to do it. We need to love our neighbors in words, in action, and in a comprehensive way. And lastly, I think we should prepare for the new wineskins of our new ministries in the post-COVID era. I have given you several examples. Like our mission organization runs a World Mission Conference pretty regularly, usually in the beginning once a year, now twice a year. So the first challenge of the COVID-19 is how can you run a conference? You cannot meet. So very quick, my colleagues changed it to a live streaming World Mission Conference in a physical one. You know what? The outcome is far beyond expectations. We attract more people to come because they don't have to pay an expensive fee to go to a conference center. We attract people who want to hear from us, what have we done and do we have any advice, especially experience and what our missionaries are doing, so that they can learn it and use it in the local church and community. And then we step forward. We not only have a live streaming, we still have two coming in this month, and then we'll see what we'll do in the coming months. We also do not stop helping people to see a wider world of God's mission. So we cannot go mission trips, right? Yeah, we cannot physically. You are restricted. You cannot travel. But we can do virtual mission trips. So we have developed virtual mission trip for people to experience international visit and see God's work through Zoom. And also we have podcasts, share experience as well. And lastly, I want to give credit to all the good friends I have in India. We started COVID crisis chat group, WhatsApp chat group very soon. We have, I would say that chat group about 200 people, pastors and church leaders and so forth. And then very soon from one chat group, we developed several of them. And then basically in the chat groups, we do two things. One is we encourage each other. We share scriptures. We share spiritual devotion so that we are cheering up instead of, oh, everybody depressed and, so difficult. So it is a platform that we keep each other, energized and see God's presence. Same and important is that we use these chat groups to share COVID information. So in fact, finally, we publish a weekly newsletter called the India Baptist Herald. In every issue, we have a devotional message, and then the rest of several pages are the COVID updates of every major areas and states of India. So we let the whole group, we have a strong network, let the local people post the information, prayer requests, where they get help from, medical help, food, shelter, and so forth, so that we are all better informed. It turns out this spiritual encouragement, okay, and then we develop a joint Baptist worship. Every month we have 24 hours rally and so forth. All these efforts, I'm referring to this Baptist network in India now, have put us together and joined us together in such a way that, American Baptist is only one denomination that starts Baptist work in India. There are many other Baptist groups, and then there are many Christian groups, right? But I'm talking about Baptist now. So we were surprised that, in the past, sometimes we talk about, are you American Baptist? Are you British Baptist? We no longer ask those questions. We are human. That is the priority. And so now our Baptist chat groups or this network, in fact, have seen a vision that we started thinking, in fact, last year, even more clear. That is, we would like to have an even closer relationship by forming an all India Baptist organization. In fact, this morning, I received a draft of the bylaws of the National Council of Baptist Churches in India. So we are moving one step forward to a reality. And when this organization is formed, we will be representing more than 5 million Baptist members, and not in a boastful way. In fact, in terms of membership, we'll become the biggest Protestant organization in India. It's not the size that matters. It's the heart and our common concern for human life and dignity, which is matter. Any good thing happen from the COVID crisis? Definitely. I see God's mercy, I see God's guiding hands, and I see that the COVID is a blessings in disguise to bring forth a better future if we follow the voice of the Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dr. Chan, for your inspiring words. Yes, this virus is scary, as you said. I know my family is in healthcare. My husband's a physician, so I do see that on a daily basis. But we praise God for his understanding and his leading. So, by his grace, we can be a channel to help others. I request Reverend Dr. Anna Thomas to please share her thoughts on this subject. The Reverend Dr. Thomas is senior pastor at Beverly United Methodist Church in New Jersey.
Hello, everyone. Grace and peace to you. I am a local pastor here from a small town in New Jersey, a United Methodist pastor. I wanted to share something about how this pandemic has changed the landscape of our faith and community relationship.
Check if they can hear you.
Can you hear me, all of you? I just wanted to check. Sorry.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I really want to thank Deepika as well as the CMC Foundation, because it's really important to recognize what God's people, when inspired by the Spirit of God, can do in wonderful ways. So I really thank for the CMC Foundation, the hospital, the staff, and everyone really tirelessly working hard. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak here. I start with one thing that I just wanted to let people know, that my parents, both of them, my mom and dad, have been tested positive for COVID, and they both live in India. So, and not being able to be there by their bedside is one of the hardest thing that I feel. And they are recovering well, but definitely I invite prayers for this. So when I think about how millions of not just people here in the United States, but in India and all over the world are suffering from this COVID-19 crisis, one of the things that people are really struggling with is their faith. Because faith for people has been that gathered community, coming together as the people of God and trying to really connect with each other. The second slide, Sushi, is about recognizing how the church can truly become the people of God. And one thing that I feel the beauty of our faith is well expressed in the communion that we celebrate, the Eucharist, and even the cross, and then the resurrection. Because there is theological evidence to point that in crises, in brokenness, God's presence is so much visible to us that how we celebrate all these things, that God is still shows us the glimpses of who Christ is and what that body of Christ is doing. So definitely what church is changed in this post-COVID crises. How to gather, how to safely gather, and the virtual reality is all that is able to is changed. How worshipers are gathering through the Mass that is celebrated in California and all these places, it's definitely a different thing. Also, people are asking questions. What is the lesson that we can learn for humanity? Is God speaking to us? Is God giving some truth and understanding behind it? Many sometimes, I think so, the start of the pandemic felt like, is God punishing us for what we are doing? And how do we wrestle with these themes? How do we understand where God is speaking to us? Pew Research has done some different things about religion and society, and it is a reputable institute that really researches, and many of them feel that almost 86% of adults, there is some kind of lesson for us set for humanity, and 35% say that the lessons were sent by God. Some say that it means almost 13% don't believe in God. And there is also 13% who say that there is a lesson to be learned. So what is this lesson that we are called to learn? The first thing for our faith community is that we need to pray more, pray harder. This is coming from a 19-year-old young man. And also, the second thing that we learn is that we also learn about how to become closer to God. Because one thing that COVID has brought, and not having worship, is that we are isolated. And sometimes what it does is creates depression, creates all kinds of unwanted cycles in human life. So what it does is, how can we create a pathway for us? So people have resorted to quiet contemplation for spiritual growth, have created an understanding of being grateful during this time, praying for the sick and the unemployed. Also, we have lessons how to appreciate and love each other, to be more thankful for our blessings. Many of those who have died with coronavirus had underlying health issues. So one of the things that has happened is that, how do we pay more attention to our health? Because many times in our life, we are just living day by day, and paying careful attention to our health, understanding how we resort to healthy choices is an important thing that many of the Americans, as well as people around the world, are paying attention, that we need to walk more, that we need to care for our health more. Also, one of the things that is happening is that, how do we become more involved? Because, you know, because of the isolation that people are experiencing and not being able to gather as a faith community or the gathered community, the virtual reality of the church is becoming more evident. And in midst of that, I think so pastors, faith leaders, and even parishioners are struggling. How do we make this presence so much so that people are not just having a broadcast or a telecast, but at the same time, how do they connect with each other? How do we connect with the people that are during this time? So there is a hunger for the word of God. There is a hunger that is expressed by people. Just this past week, we had our Bible study, and more people from other churches were gathering. So we had an in-person, but also we had a Zoom Bible study. And another thing, that the hunger for God, how do we connect with people outside in our community? That is becoming more and more challenging, especially with mission. How do we minister to people? One of the things right now, just behind these doors, we have our church gathering food baskets for people, because once a month, our church, Beverly United Methodist Church, feeds 120 to 130 individuals in our community who are suffering, who don't have food on their table, as well as we give them grocery bags with detergent, food items, non-perishable items, all these things that we give to them. And it was challenging during COVID time. How can we minister to people? How can we truly be there for people who are suffering? And, you know, job loss, all these things are affecting people. And how do we really minister to people? So now we see how people can still come together and think in different creative ways. What we have done is, people don't have to come inside the church, just have a drive-by food distribution center. And we have created a place where we are able to minister to people right where they need them. They just have to come by their car, they open their trunk, we give them the food, we give them the sandwiches, and it is an amazing way that we can minister to people. Also, the fun things about being a virtual church sometimes is reasons to watch church online is no parking, refill your coffee anytime, relax in your pajamas, and you can mute the pastor whenever you want. So it's interesting to realize how in different ways, and how can we be creative to realize. when you think about what Facebook or YouTube or all these live streaming things were considered, Facebook was considered as something from the devil. And now in 2020, when we have to resort to ways of reaching out to minister to people, to spread the good news, we realize that follow our services online. In just moments' notice, we have found out right after COVID struck, pastors are becoming as tele-evangelists. Means we don't have to look at Joel Osteen or others, but all of us have the capacity. And if we can truly be creative to doing and spreading the good news of Christ. And if you know the song, "We Are the Church," the church is not just about the building. And now it is time for us to really reimagine ourselves in this virtual reality. What is church? How can we truly be connecting to the people? How can we truly minister to people right in their living rooms, right at their jobs, right at the places where they are available? And that's important. There is a slide here where 2 or more are gathered, but less than 10 are gathered. God is present. And it's important to recognize, even in midst of this virtual reality, God is needed to change. Live streaming church, how families gather in their living rooms and watch the live stream church. More things change, the more they remain the same. So there is a desperate need to be the church during this time. And God still connects with us, and God still wants us to be here. So definitely it is an important part of a learning lesson for us. And we are the church of tomorrow. And God continues to journey with us in midst of our trials, because we believe we are the Easter people, that we believe that God continues to work with us and grow us. Amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend Anna. I'm so sorry to hear about your parents, and I will definitely pray for them in my personal prayers. You are so right in saying that we are the Easter people. God has given us hope as we move forward. We're going to see if we have any questions that have come in. We have just a little time to answer questions, but if you do have a couple of questions, we could maybe answer just one. I don't see any questions, so let's move on to our next segment. And this segment deals with the impact that a Christian-rooted education has on the preparation of future doctors. What are some new paradigms in educational ministries, and how can we continue to holistically nurture and make a lasting impact in the lives of others? Our first presenter is Dr. Anna Pulimud, who is principal of Christian Medical College and Hospital in Vellore.
Thank you, Deepika. Could I share my screen?
Yes, please. Thank
you. So I'd like to thank the Vellore Foundation for this opportunity to say something about the impact of a Christian-rooted education on the preparation of future doctors. And I'd like to briefly start with the Vellore story. Though all of you probably know it, I'd like to just retell it in a few slides. So 120 years ago, a young woman arrived in India because of a bold and courageous decision to dedicate her life to improving the condition of the women of South India. The medical school she started in 1918 for women bore her stamp, her vision of changing the world. She chose a verse from the Bible about service and sacrifice as the motto for the college, not to be served, but to serve. And she said we were building the kingdom of God. People joined her from all over the world and all over India, sharing her vision and her dream because it was so right. The two aspects of CMC Vellore from the start, world-class care and a concern for the poor, disadvantaged and marginalized, continued even as the institution grew, like the threads of a double-shaded silk sari of Kanchipuram. One without the other is common, but the combination is our hallmark. But apart from excellence in healthcare and a commitment to service, I would like to also highlight two other core Christian values of CMC Vellore and our education and the doctors we train. And these are compassion and sacrifice. And over the next few slides, I'd like to briefly tell you on how we try and impart these Christian values through education to our students. So you can't have a Christian education without excellence in healthcare. Jesus' healing was always complete. It was always excellent. So, and excuse for if you're hearing any thunderous sounds, because there's a thunderstorm brewing around us, and the current also, the lights may suddenly go off, but they will come back in a few seconds. So for excellence in healthcare, our rigorous curriculum schedule, it's very intense. The commitment of teachers, various HR strategies for faculty development, and the high standards of clinical practice in the hospital all contribute to our students learning excellence in healthcare. Integrity and high ethical standards underpin all of the above. How do we teach a commitment to serve and concern for the community? We used to have a beautiful selection process by which we identify candidates with an interest and a commitment to serve. But we also have various curricular innovations that have developed over the years and continue to change with the times. These are particularly important. The community orientation program that gives students a living experience in the community. The community health programs that teach them how to deal with problems. The secondary hospital postings that give them exposure to remote hospitals in the country and the challenges of working there. And the 2-year mandatory service obligation that actually makes sure that students work in these remote areas and learn what commitment to serve is really all about. Their interaction with role models, of course, is also important, and their exposure to outreach work of CMC in our communities around us. So in Chad, Rusa, LCCU, and Javadi, that Dr. Anu Rose will be talking about later. Teaching compassion, of course, is more difficult. I think the most important way of teaching compassion is through beautiful role models. The role models in our hospital and in the community hospitals and the mission hospitals where they are posted are all places where doctors show the students what compassion is in real life. We used to hope that our admission process would also identify students with compassion by hearing stories from their lives. Spiritual growth through community services, Bible class retreats, and class prayers also help our students grow in compassion. Life in hostels and the college community, where students of different walks of life and from different socioeconomic backgrounds and different cultural backgrounds come together and live for 3 to 5 years, is a time when actually they learn to get along with different kinds of people and learn compassion in everyday life. The service obligation, again, is a time when they learn compassion by actual service in the community. And the most difficult value that we try to teach is sacrifice. It's not something that you can teach in the curriculum, but again, something they learn from role models, from postings in the mission hospitals, by learning by practice every day in the college. Interactions with alumni who have a deep commitment. We have award ceremonies for alumni with outstanding service and sacrifice. And students interact with these alumni during the award ceremonies, and they get to see how and what motivated them to live that life of sacrifice. And of course, spiritual growth that we encourage, we hope, will help them to grow in the spirit of sacrifice. I'd like to tell you a story. Many of you may know about him. One of our alumni, Johnny Umin, who joined medical college in 1980 at the age of 17. While he was in college, he played an active role in college life, showing the courage to go against the grain whenever it was necessary. Johnny Umin moved to a Christian hospital in Rayagada district of Orissa as part of a service obligation. And he saw the plight of the people there, tribal and Dalit populations, and decided that he would train in community medicine and go back to work with the people there in Orissa. He trained in community medicine, and in 1994, when he started his work, he started with a survey of the health indices. He found a negative growth rate of 10% and a crude death rate and infant mortality rate that were double that of the national average. He started the Mitra project to work in 53 predominantly Adivasi villages. The dream was health, education, economic security, and social empowerment for all. The Mitra project gave top priority to malaria, and a third of all deaths were believed to be due to malaria in that area. The People's Movement Against Malaria was part of the Mitra project, programs selected, funded, and implemented by the people. Strategy involved education, prevention, treatment, and the tackling of malnutrition. The prevalence of malarial parasitemia dropped to almost a third of what it was before. The fever death rate dropped to 50% in 15 years. And there was an extraordinary improvement in the health indices. Less than half of the original crude death rate, infant mortality rate, and under 5 mortality rate. Eventually, the model was extended to the entire state by training of village heads across the state. And Johnny continues to work in Bisham Cuttack as a leader, doctor, teacher, role model, and a resource person for the government and Christian organizations. But he's not the only one. There are close to 4,000 doctors and 3,000 specialists trained in CMC who've given thousands of years of healthcare to the poorest and least accessible parts of the country where few doctors venture. About 10% of our graduates spend a lifetime of service in these rural areas. But many others have also given world-class healthcare in our hospital here in Vellore and many smaller towns across the country. They have tackled malnutrition, malaria, and so many other diseases in caring, innovative ways. Our education has led to important research that's made an impact on the quality of healthcare around the world. Dr. Paul Brand helped develop corrective surgery for deformities of leprosy for the first time in the world. But more recently, faculty have identified simple solutions to improve the efficacy of polio vaccines. They've used stem cells in novel ways to treat musculoskeletal deformities and found a cost-effective treatment for acute leukemia. They've used sophisticated technology to create a low-cost, effective hand affordable to even the poorest person who needs it. Our international alumni have also made fantastic contributions to science in academic institutions across the world. Many have played and continue to play major leadership roles in their institutions and disciplines, and they continue to support CMC and our alumni in innumerable ways. I'd like to conclude with a quote from one of our award citations. Educational institutions fulfill their destiny through their alumni who contribute to society in their own way. I hope through my few slides I've shown you that Christian-rooted education can create new paradigms in global missions in service, education, and research. And I'd like to conclude in the words of Oscar Romero, Archbishop of San Salvador. We accomplish in our lifetime only a tiny fraction of the magnificent enterprise that is God's work. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and do the rest. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anna. So true. We accomplish just a fraction of what God does, but we thank Him for His grace through us. Thank you so much for enlightening us on this unique experience that CMC students obtain in getting training in excellence, in compassion, and in sacrificial behavior. It's definitely wonderful to see this. We'll just check again to see if we have any questions.
Question vichara hota. Want to ask a question?
Again, please feel free to send in your questions.
Just wanted to say something.
Yes, go ahead.
One of the things that I feel, especially in this pandemic, and having means when you're thinking about how to congregate, and that's one of the things that is really hard. How is it affecting not just churches, but also educational institutions where poverty level is very high?
Deepika, should I answer that?
Please answer that.
Yeah, so definitely we couldn't have our students staying on in the hostels because of the risk of infection. And we've sent them all home and we're doing online classes. Definitely a challenge. We do hope that they'll be back soon so that, they can come back to their physical learning and, interaction with patients. But again, I think we'll have to wait and maybe try and cram all the clinical exposure to a few months before their examinations, but it's definitely a challenge.
Thank you. Let's go ahead with our next presenter, Dr. Hudson Kubuka, and he is Associate Director and Liaison for Higher Education and Advisor to Southern Asia Division, and this is with the Seventh-day Adventist Church.
The organizers of this forum, all protocol observed, I greet you all. Thank you, Deepika, for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation to participate in this forum. This is my first time. I'm meeting a lot of new people, and I'm sure I'm going to be making a lot of new friends. The topic as it was given is such a wide topic, very difficult to cover in 10 minutes. So it's just like a summary or a brief that I'm going to share with you here. But we can continue learning more and getting more from this topic later on as we continue to interact with one another. Indeed, as the previous speaker has mentioned, it is very difficult to talk about this topic without remembering the legacy of the founder of Velour. The topic, first of all, brings some questions to our mind. Does Christian-rooted education have a place in today's society? That's one question. Question number two that came to my mind is that what is it that motivated the pioneers and the founders of Velour? And what is it that motivates those who continue to serve in such institutions, Velour and other Christian medical institutions? Question number three that came to my mind is, in such a competitive world today, how is it possible to balance quality service and compassionate care? I'm sure most of you who read the article that was published in the Harvard Business Review, you found that they did a good work to cover and talk about this topic, and indeed good publicity for Velour and the non-profits. The legacy that we're talking about that led to the establishment of Velour included virtues like service, humility, dedication, compassion, and faith, all based on love, summarized into compassionate care, excellence in service, in education, and dedication to scientific research. And while we think of new paradigms in education and medical practice, which we must do because with the changes that are taking place today, we cannot but go along with the science. However, the virtues, the principles that are mentioned above are very foundational because they are based on love, which is expressed in the Word of God. For the Bible says in 1 John chapter 4, verse 8 and 16, that God is love. And because God is love, John 13:34 says, love one another. In fact, Jesus, as we know, summarized the 10 commandments into two: love God and love fellow man. As we provide medical education or any kind of education, what is it that is the end result? Who do we have in mind as the end user of that education? What is the focus? Is it the graduate doctor? Indeed, the medical student benefits from the education as he or she transitions to become a physician or a doctor. But the question still lingers: for what purpose? Who is the beneficiary? I submit that the end result or the beneficiary of any education that we offer, especially in the medical education, is the patient on the bed that is looking towards receiving treatment, and the community member who receives services of compassion. Education that emphasizes those principles, those virtues, cannot be ignored. Just as physicians and medical personnel who embrace these principles become the darling of their societies. And I think the previous presentation has highlighted this very well. In the world that is changing very fast, one would wish, and I'm sure we would all wish, that all the changes were for the better. But as we all know, just as there are very good technological advances that are very beneficial to education and medical services, to almost the same extent, to almost the same degree, and surprisingly so, are the changes for the worst. Somebody has said that the human heart is becoming, ironically, very inhuman. In addition to issues like overpopulation, global warming, extreme poverty, poor sanitation, etc., to which our contribution may be minimal, or for us, at least for some of us, reports of professionals carrying out unthinkable acts abound in the media. The corruption that prevails is beyond the power of the human pen to describe. Every day brings fresh revelation of political strife, bribery, and fraud. Every other day brings its sickening record of violence and lawlessness, of indifference to human suffering, of brutal destruction to human life. Every day testifies to the increase of insanity, murder, and suicide. In such a world, the need for Christian-based medical personnel cannot be overstated, because that is following in the example of Jesus. The Bible says in Matthew chapter 4, verse 23, that he, that is Jesus, went through all Galilee, that is the community, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom, and healing all kinds of disease and sickness among the people. Elsewhere in Matthew 9:36 says, when he saw the crowds, he had compassion on them. And another author has said was put it in another way, that the Savior mingled with men and women as one who desired their good. He showed sympathy, that is compassion for them, ministered to their needs, and won their confidence, and then invited them to follow him. God's desire for humanity right from the creation was happiness. He never wanted humanity to suffer. Disease was not part of his creation. It's a creation of the devil that is trying to replace God's good health. And therefore, that is why God sent Jesus to come to this world to correct that situation. As he needs, as he corrects this situation, he needs our cooperation, especially those of us who profess Christianity. He invites us to join him in doing this work. When he was on earth, as we all know, he gave the 12 apostles a practical lesson. The Bible says that after Jesus called the 12 together, he gave them power and authority over all demons and to cure diseases. And he sent them out to proclaim the kingdom of God and to heal the sick. That is the biblical mandate for global missions. In doing so, healthcare and educational and related educational institutions should give high priority to human dignity and human relationships. They should seek to provide an efficient, safe, and caring environment conducive to the healing of mind, body, and spirit. But in order for this to be able to happen, it does not take chance. It does not happen by chance. It does not just happen. It takes intentional educational preparation for those involved. Intentional educational preparation for those who are involved. Hence the need for Christian-based educational institutions to make a difference, not only within their own gates, but in their communities. Health institutions, healthcare institutions, and even educational institutions are more successful if they operate as part of the community where they are located and the nation in which they function. In representing the love of Christ to the communities, the health of the communities and the prosperity of the nations are guaranteed. And therefore, what are the legacies, or what is the legacy, or what is the paradigm that we need to think about for the future? In the story of Velor, we have heard part of it. We know, as we know it, Dr. Ida Scudder received 3 knocks. Although at that time she may not have responded to them directly, but she was able to interpret them correctly, and that led to the establishment of that great institution, CMC. These 3 knocks I want to submit that they can be said to represent God's knocks on each individual heart. For he said in Revelation 3:20, I stand at the door and knock. How we interpret those knocks makes a whole lot of difference. Peter, Jesus' disciple, had the opportunity to receive those knocks in person, because as we read in John 21, verses 15 to 17, Jesus says to Simon Peter, Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these? And he does it 3 times, just like the 3 knocks. And look, notice the mandate that is given. It is a mandate of service. Jesus says, feed my lambs, my little ones, my helpless ones. Colleagues, that along with the good scientific advancement ought to be the overarching paradigm for the training of God's followers, and especially medical leaders now and for the future. Feed my lambs, combined with good scientific advancement, should form the paradigm for the training of medical personnel and all God's people for the future. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kibuka. Your words that says that Jesus stands at the door and knocks, and your statement about how we interpret those knocks, just as Ida Scudder did so many years ago. But we see that intentional education preparation that is provided both through CMC and also through the Seventh-day Adventist Church. So we thank you for that sharing. In light of what you have shared, we actually have a question that you can answer. And it is, how do we sensitize the church community to reach out to the needs of the suffering? Reverend Ben Chan says that he would like to answer this question. So Reverend Ben, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm very touched by the two presentations. I think Valor has already done it. I think it's a role model. So you have a vision and you carry it out, and you combined, as you know, what has been shared, a strong faith and your vision to serve. But on the other hand, you have a professional excellency. And I think Christian world, has to combine these two. And I think Valor, CMC Valor has just been a good role model that you have done it. Yeah.
Yes, just to add a little bit on that, that was the Jesus example. He did it by showing the example. So being a role model, being an example is the best way to do it. And it is already being done by CMC and some other Christian medical institutions. So modeling is the best way. And it's better than just talking.
Definitely, thank you. Yes, action does speak louder than words, as we see that in all your organizations. So thank you for that sharing. Just wanted to mention that the question was from Dr. Chandra Singh. So let's move on to our next segment. And this deals with empowering medical ministry in South India, modeling Jesus's examples to support the needs of others. How do our organizations seek to empower both women and men to help those less fortunate than ourselves through healing ministries and transformative relationships? And our presenter to start us off is Dr. Anu Rose. Dr. Rose is Program Director for the Jawadi Hills Model Villages Project, and this is part of the Department of Community Health and Development at CMC Vellore. It's on there, so it may take some time for Dr. Anu to. Dr. Rose, can you able to hear clearly?
Deepika, we are having electricity cuts, so I think she may have lost connectivity. She may come back in later.
Okay,
We didn't have electricity for the last 10-15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that update, Dr. Anna. Let's go ahead with.
Can I share my
screen? Yes. Please go ahead, Dr. Anu. We are not able to hear you very clearly. If you want, we can wait on you. I mean, wait for Doc after Scott, and then have your presentation when the electricity comes back. Let's do that. And next we have Scott Engelsmann, and Scott will present also on the same topic. He is Supervisor of Marketing Disaster Response. This is at the Reformed Church in America, and he is part of this, he's Supervisor for Marketing Disaster Response in Europe and the Middle East. Thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And I just have to say, Dr. Anna, I get flustered when my dog barks, and you had a full lightning storm and thunder, and you just kept on going in the dark and everything. Well done. Deepika, I'm gonna focus a little bit on that question on the transformative relationship part. I'm gonna start with Ephesians 4, verses 11 and 12. It was he who gave some gifts to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, and some to be pastors and teachers in order to prepare God's people for works of service. Some of you know that the RCA has been partnering with local ministries around the world for over 375 years. We have deep relationships in places like Oman, Bahrain, Japan, Mexico, countless others, including India. Oftentimes, those partnerships were started because of the need for healing ministries among those who needed it most. We would have missionaries go to these places and form relationships with people, and through those relationships, create partnerships to meet the needs that were there in those local communities. In fact, that's the very story at the beginning of CNC, right? Ida Scudder experienced the 3 knocks in the night, and that alerted her to the need for quality health care for women. We all know the rest of that story. It's been alluded to already today. But I think one part of that story that gets skipped over a little bit is the relationships that the Scudder family had formed both in India and in the USA that helped that story play out in the way it did and allowed for 120 years of growth of CNC. Transformative relationships that brought funding for the first one-bed clinic. And it brought relationships that helped lead women to that one-bed clinic, because what good is a one-bed clinic if people in the community don't trust the person who's running that clinic? And it was those relationships that brought community members into the clinic in the first place. So without those relationships, there's no story here, right? There's no story of growth from that one-bed clinic to a world-class medical school with multiple locations today. The RCA has been a leader in mission around the world because of those kinds of local relationships. Some of those relationships span hundreds of years, and yet there's others that are just new in the last few months. Even through COVID, we're forming new relationships. Each of those relationships for us represents an opportunity to help each other in some way, an opportunity to help those in need. And whether that's a healing ministry or ministry of evangelism and church planting, today those opportunities to help others, they're more global than ever. And I think we're seeing that more and more through the way we all have to work right now through the COVID-19 epidemic, and the pandemic, is that we have to sit like this. I haven't traveled in 7 months. This is the longest I've been home in 15 years. I'm not sure my family likes it that much. I think they'd rather me go every once in a while, but this is what we're stuck with at the moment. And I think it made us all realize that the world has become much smaller through technology, and even through more efficient travel, our role in relationships has also changed because of that. Each of us now has an opportunity to share our relationships and become connectors and collaborators. I'll tell you a really quick story about global community and transformative relationships. The National Evangelical Church in Bahrain started in 1895. For the past 125 years, RCA missionaries have been the pastor of that church. Last year, about this time, we found that we needed a need for an interim pastor to fill the pulpit of the English language congregation of the National Evangelical Church. And so I asked my friend Doug, who also is our RCA church planting coordinator for Europe, if he would go there for a few months and fill in. And he said, I don't know anything about Bahrain, I don't know anything about their culture, but I'm happy to do it. I would love to do it. At the same time that we were having that conversation with him, we were appointing a new missionary here in West Michigan, who is planting. He's from Nepal. Yakub is from Nepal. He moved here to West Michigan for schooling, and he stayed and planted a Nepali-speaking church here in West Michigan. He's now gone on to plant another one in a town in the middle of Michigan and one in Columbus, Ohio. And he has a vision of planting Nepali-speaking churches all over the world. And so we were appointing him to be an RCA missionary to plant churches in Nepal, in the U.S., wherever there's people who speak Nepali. And so, you know, those two things happen at the same time. Doug and Yakub know each other from living in West Michigan together and running in the same circles. In January, JP and I were part of an event that we did called Mission 2020, where we got to celebrate the history of RCA Global Mission and celebrate the impact that our churches have had around the world. And before that happened, we had 2 days of a gathering of church planters from around the world. So we had people from Africa and Brazil and Nepal and Europe and all over the world. And during that time, Doug is relaying a story about how while he was in Bahrain, he had met people who were part of the Nepali-speaking congregation at the National Evangelical Church and spent some time with them. This is just who Doug is. He was there for 3 months in Bahrain, and he probably has more relationships than half the people in Bahrain do with other Bahrain. And so through his times that he spent with the folks in Nepal, he found out that many of their children all grew up and went to university in Norway. And then they stayed in Norway. And what they really longed for was a Nepali-speaking church in Norway. And we just wish that there could be a Nepali-speaking church in Norway. And as we sat in this conference room in Orlando, Yakub looks at Doug and says, "Doug, that's what I do. Let's plant a Nepali-speaking church in Norway." That is an example of transformative relationships that happen around the world now that never happened before. I'm always thinking about these types of opportunities to help my partners in my relationships around the world to help each other. You know, so I look at this room and I say, how could CMC partner with the American Mission Hospital in Bahrain? How could they make each other better? How could they amplify each other's work? How could the RCA and our churches here in the U.S. support that partnership? You know, I think that's my challenge for all of us today. Hebrews 10:24 says, "And let us consider one another to provoke unto love and to good works." So who or what do we know that could help someone else in this virtual room? Together, how can we amplify each other's ministry? How can something that we're doing in the RCA partner with Ben Chan in something that they're doing in Southeast Asia? And how can we help each other to form those relationships? Particularly in this setting, how can we each use our talents and treasures to help grow CMC to reach even more people in India and around the world?
Thank you so much, Scott. It's so wonderful how you spoke about reciprocal relationships. You know, of course, Ida Skara starting that off in her one-room clinic with women who were just not trained in medicine at all, uneducated, and she, you know, helped her with minor surgeries and things. But what's also quite amazing is you mentioned Bahrain, and my parents were in the Middle East for the longest time in Dubai, and my husband and I got married in Dubai, and it seems that people from Bahrain church communities came to Dubai and planted churches in Dubai. So because of that, I could get married in Dubai with my husband. So you see how God works. So definitely we need those divine interventions and those reciprocal relationships and strive on those. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you.
Just going to see if we have any questions. And if not, let's move on to Dr. Anu.
Yes, I'm here. I hope I'm able to manage my presentation without a partner. I'll share my screen.
Yes, please, Dr. Anu.
Okay. Good evening, and I want to thank the foundation for giving me this opportunity to share a bit of our work which we do in the Department of Community Health with the people in Javadi Hills. So I'm going to talk about how the Christian Medical College Velo, my organization, empowers her employees to help those less fortunate through the healing ministries and transforming relationships. Since I work mainly with social and economic development, I have been thinking long and hard about the differences between the word development and the word transformation as is used in the title of my talk. So I think development describes the process by which communities and people become part of an existing economic order. It has the danger of becoming a mechanical pursuit of economic growth that can ignore the structural context of poverty and injustice, and it can increase the dependency and inequality which we are trying to sort out. But transformation, however, is a change in the condition of human existence contrary to God's purpose, to one in which people are able to live and enjoy the fullness of life. In CMC, we believe that physical transformation can lead to spiritual transformation. And this is the basis of our work with the downtrodden and the marginalized. So there are 3 points which come to my mind when I think about how CMC empowers staff to support the needs of others. I've illustrated it with 3 pictures here. So the first one is to look outwards. The encouragement by our institution to look outwards. By the grace of God, CMC has gained the reputation of being one of the best medical colleges in the country and one of the best hospitals rendering excellent medical care with reasonable costs. But CMC has always encouraged her staff to look outwards. I'll use the analogy of a seat in a plane. The aisle seat is similar to the window seat in all ways in a plane. In fact, it is much more comfortable because one has the freedom to get up and walk around a bit. But it only allows you to see what is happening within the plane. And on the other hand, the window seat also allows you to look outside. Inside, everything might look great, but what is happening to our community outside? Our question should not be how well we are doing and how big our institution is. It should be about how big the impact our institution has on the community around us is. The second point is giving a hand up rather than a handout. So CMC has always believed in preserving the dignity of people whom we are called to serve, whether it is somebody who's unable to pay their bill in the hospital after treatment, or for a community which is struggling for livelihood. In almost all, we are encouraged to give a hand up rather than a handout. And giving a hand up sort of implies that you're bringing somebody up to the state or level where you are, rather than putting them in a situation where they are dependent on repeated handouts. In the parable of the feeding of the 5,000, Jesus made use of resources available with the people, and they were able to contribute meaningfully. Acts of kindness and mercy towards people can be effective ministry tools, but they don't transform a community. And quoting from Reverend Caldwell from the United Methodist Church, we must engage in capacity building to empower a community. And we must not forget, God is already at work in the communities we are called to serve. We are just instruments. The third point is that it takes a community to transform a community. Excuse me. If not, it's just a bunch of people like running around trying to do some good. CMC believes in the both and policy, which means that importance is given to both primary care and to tertiary care. So work done in the community, which is not directly medical, but which is directly towards alleviation of poverty, alleviation of inaccess to food, to education, and to dignified livelihood, are not only endorsed, but they are also supported by the institution. Therefore, it has been possible to have a community of staff working towards the transformation of community. And this has been given as much importance by the institution as allotting staff for financially remunerative work such as neurosurgery or urology or something. With these 3 points, I'd like to end with 2 quotes. One is about the transformation of an individual, and the other is about the transformation of a community. So some of you, some of the foundation members who have visited Javadi might remember meeting this gentleman, Mr. Govindan. When we first met him in CMC, more than 15 years ago, he was a young boy, an orphan. He had lost all his siblings also to thalassemia. He himself was affected by thalassemia, as you can make out by this picture and the faces which you can see there. Since he was the only survivor in his family, he was a social outcast. He lived outside his uncle's house, and his only possessions were a tumbler and a plate. He was not even allowed to use the family utensils. He used to go to Chennai once a month for blood transfusions. He was brought to us by the Don Bosco fathers for treatment. As he had no family members, we couldn't do a BMT, but a splenectomy was done for him. But more importantly, what happened was he became a friend of the team members, the team which was going to Javadi regularly. And suddenly, the community around him found that if they needed to contact doctors in CMC, they just had to contact Govinda. So from being an untouchable, he became one of the most important members of his community. By our friendship with him, we were able to actually gain community acceptance for him and also a means of livelihood. We also helped him marry a girl whom he fell in love with. The marriage itself was arranged by all his friends, something which is quite unheard of in the hills. In fact, a priest from Don Bosco has his parents, as in his tribe, which is a cultural requirement that his parents or two elders have to go to the house of the girl to ask for her hand in marriage. So it was a real sense of community. So I'm just sharing a few pictures here just to illustrate the changes in Govinda's life. So the previous picture was Govinda as he is now, and as he was when he was a young boy with thalassemia. And in these pictures here, oh, sorry, I don't know how to go back to that, but let me see. In the picture on top, there is Govinda serving food to some people, and this is actually very important because if you know Tamil Indian culture, an untouchable is not allowed to touch anything which other people eat, you know, even in utensils. So here is somebody who was a social outcast who is now serving food for others. The other picture here is him riding a bike which he bought with his own money. And the two pictures down here, in the first one, he's sitting here being trained by one of our Chad social workers. And in the second one, he is a trainer himself. He's training the boys who are sitting in front of him in the blue chairs on how to do some social intervention we were doing, measuring the heights and weights with of children. And this is a picture of Govinda with his wife, Kamachi, the girl whom he fell in love with. The second is what I want to talk about is about the transformation of a village. So the village is Valitadam Kotai, and with the help of the Velo Foundation, we are working in this villages for the last 4 years. So Valitadam Kotai, like most other villages in Javadi, is dependent on the monsoons for livelihood. But over the past few decades, because of the unpredictable weather, people had to resort to migration for labor. And as most of us know, migrant laborers, even within the same country, live a life stripped of dignity. They don't have access to healthcare and education, and are often paid less than what is paid to the native laborers when they work in a different state. So we've been working in this village for the last 3 years, and nothing has been a handout. Rather, we have helped them obtain government subsidies which are already available, or offered subsidies for sustainable agriculture and animal husbandry, and training programs and opportunities for training. So in this last year, none of the people of Valitadam Kotai migrated for labor, and they were able to earn a livelihood in their own village. And because of this, they were spared the difficulties which all the other migrants suffered during the lockdown period, which we have all been reading about. They now even have a village bank, a bank account where they have money which they use towards helping other people who are more disempowered than them. So all this is for the glory of God and towards reaching Aunt Ida's vision of building the kingdom of God. We hope that people who notice our work say God is with them, and that is why they are able to do these things. Often when young medical students get into CMC, they are told God has chosen them. But I would like to paraphrase from Pastor Caldwell from the United Methodist Church, which does not do it with us in mind, but with other people in mind. So this is the message, which in essence, the message that CMC gives its young doctors and staff, which empowers them to support the needs of others, irrespective of what our own situation is. These are just a few pictures from Valitadam Kotai. There are 3 pictures here where you can see lots of people meeting in groups. Of course, all this is before the lockdown and the COVID period. And all this shows the amount of input it takes to actually sort of, build a bond with the community and help them to sort of have a hand up rather than a handout. Some of the other pictures are the work which the people are doing themselves towards their own economic development. And this is a result of all the work which has gone on. That the village is now green, there is paddy growing, there are vegetables growing, people have animals and livestock, due to which they don't have to migrate for labor. So I'd like to stop with this. And in brief, this is my sort of understanding of how it has been possible for us to work in the community and empower a community, and how CMC has enabled its staff to do this. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Dr. Anu. Could you repeat the statement that you had mentioned the statement that God has chosen you. Some of the students say that, but the Methodist pastor said gave another statement.
Yeah, so when students join college, very often we tell them you're not here by yourself or just by chance. It is by God's design in your life. So God has chosen you. But as Pastor Caldwell, I understand he's a pastor from the United Methodist Church who did a lot of work among young people with addiction problems, with cocaine and alcohol addiction. So he counseled somebody, a young man called Darrell, I forget the second name. And he told him, when God chooses and blesses us, he does not do it with us in mind, but rather with other folks in mind. And I think that is the message which is sort of what CMC gives us, that we have been chosen to serve others. And that is what I was trying to say.
Thank you. Amen to that. We are definitely God's channel to others. And it was just amazing how you also spoke about, the way that CMC is giving a hands up and not a hands out. And that just is a testimony to the way that CMC just empowers not only individuals, but communities, as we see in the Javadi Hills, in not only transforming lives, but giving a sense of dignity and helping them to be self-sufficient. And that is very unique. And so thank you so much for sharing that with us. I believe we have one question from Dr. Cherian Thomas, and he asks, Dr. Anu, are you related to Mr. Rose who taught us? And this is from Cherian, excuse me, Cherian Thomas, batch of 1960.
Mr. Vittal Raj Rose is my husband's uncle. I'm related by marriage. Dolly is my husband Winsley's cousin.
Yeah, it's a small world. I think my dad had asked me the same question, so because he knows your uncle too. So thank you so much, Dr. Rose. And let's go on to our next segment. So our next segment deals with mission-driven volunteerism for medical and non-medical professionals. And here we are going to look at some examples of cross-cultural mission work as we seek to reach all from every tribe and language and people and every nation. And this is taken from Revelations 5:9. So our first presenter here is Reverend Dinabandhu Manchala, and he is the Southern Asia Executive for Global Ministries, United Church of Christ.
Good morning to the friends in the US, and good afternoon or evening, or good evening actually, to the friends in India. Thanks to Velo CMC Foundation for this opportunity to share my thoughts on the theme, which I would focus on the first part of the theme, which is mission-driven volunteerism. My perspectives on the theme of this segment are based on my engagement as a representative of a US-based Christian diaconal organization with churches and church institutions in South and Southeast Asia region. And of course, my identity as an Indian and my vocation as a pastor and theologian are also part of this perspective. Early this year when the pandemic struck us, many of us, optimists like me, thought that it would help us as human beings and the world community to go through a process of serious introspection, recognized our vulnerability, abandon our obsessive pursuits of domination and destruction, and make changes to the way we govern our political and economic life and social dynamics. Nothing of that seems to have happened or seems to be happening. If at all it did, it has only been on the fringes. And we have heard from our speakers some negatives, but more positive trends in spite of all that is happening. But I would like to share with you as some of the serious challenges on the ground. I think that is very important as we reflect further and find new signposts for our work ahead. The continued obsession with economic growth at the expense of people and their welfare, especially healthcare. And increasingly dysfunctional democracies with majoritarian politics and interests, the shocking reality of religion as a perpetrator of violence and division in the world today in many parts of the world, and the discrimination and exclusion based on race, caste, religion, ethnicity, and the unabated culture of violence, both in physical and structural form. But we have also seen some positive trends: solidarity and compassion. According to reports, more of that humanitarian work in India was done by NGOs and faith communities than by the government. And people's resistance to systemic injustice and abuse of power. There are people's movements resisting, all, racism, casteism, and abuse of, state power in many forms. So we seem to find ourselves at crossroads, and there seems to be a moral divide. There are some who want the world back the way it was in order to pursue their interests. And there are also others who want another world which ensures justice, dignity, and life for all. Now, the point here is that do we adapt ourselves to the changes and circumstances, whichever way they take us to, or do we set new trends and purposeful alternatives for the way ahead? I think this seems to be indeed a moment of reckoning for all those who are involved in people's action, for faith communities, especially to churches and church institutions, including institutions like CMC and many others who are concerned about, who are engaged in serving the people of God in different contexts and circumstances. So it is also, therefore, it's time also for us to reimagine our faith vocation. What does it mean to be a Christian? What does it mean to affirm our faith and practice of faith? What does it mean to be a church? And what kind of a new understandings of mission and diaconia do these circumstances help us to formulate, to come to an understanding? And whose side are we? So these are some of the hard questions, and how do we respond? And but as we think further, and I think we also must take into account the challenges on the ground, the context within which we work in order to be realistic, dynamic, and relevant and credible. Because I think as a person representing a diaconal organization in extremely complex and sometimes hostile situations in South and Southeast Asia, with all the multiple challenges there, we cannot but take some of these contextual realities on the ground seriously, because Christian presence and practice of faith is done in predominantly multi-religious contexts. And these multi-religious contexts are not what they used to be, but they are changing. And the pandemic also is going to change further. So how do we sort of find the way ahead? And I just want to share from my own experience, as I work with many partner churches, institutions, organizations, including medical institutions in this part of the world. Many of our partner organizations are in a very difficult situation, particularly in the moment of time with the affected by the pandemic. And many of them have already moved into a kind of a survival mode, and many others are not swift enough to shift to new areas of engagement, and they seem to be more comfortable with carry on with whatever they have been doing and the familiar patterns of diaconia and engagement in people's lives. And at the same time, some of our diaconal organizations, I'm sure, Ben would agree with me, who are, partnering with the churches in other parts of the world. We are also under tremendous strain of reductions of staff. Now, how do we find the way ahead? And be that as it may, but I think we also need to take the realities on the ground, especially as I talk about India, the rise of religious supremacist ideologies, ideology called Hindutva, which is posing serious challenges to, not only Christian diaconal engagement, but also to anything that helps to empower and enable communities. Christian diaconal engagement, to be specific, is mocked, trivialized, interfered, and curtailed. And I don't need to say more about it, especially for those of us who are here in this gathering from India, how, the Christians suddenly seem to have been sort of ambushed by a variety of challenges to deal with and to stay afloat and stay alive and remain active. I know there seems to be a trend towards urban upper caste, upper middle class, caste Hindu growth and prominence in all fields so that they are able to recreate a society of their own script. And anything else that contradicts that official script or the script of the sections is countered through state mechanism, through political power. So, as many of you know, these are present already through new policies on agriculture, education, labor sector, privatization of education, privatization of health and public services corporations. These are all things that actually are sort of making people move towards kind of a regime of pauperization. The pauperization of the masses is actually, is in process. And at the same time, there is also a repression of dissent. And there are many laws that have been, recently introduced, and many of them are also being misused. So it is this kind of a situation, the challenges on the ground and the challenges with our own organizations from the United States and other parts of the world in support of the services on the ground in India, and also the limitations that our partners are facing, the three challenges. How do we find a way ahead? How do we see, how do we continue to be engaged in a way that is relevant, credible, and creative? And I think this certainly, in spite of all the challenges, but I think this is also a time for us to look for opportunities for creative engagement. I think that is where we need to sort of invest our minds and our hearts and also pray and act in order that, we are able to do what God wants this moment in time. So I would like to just share with you some areas where signs of hope that we can perhaps sort of begin to sort of think about. One of the things that occurs to me in my observation and experience is that I think we need to move beyond traditional forms and methodologies of doing service and doing mission. We need to sort of look for new ways through which we are able to sort of, be engaged and make positive changes, effect transformation in the lives of people and communities and situations. So that prompts me to say, takes me to the next point to say that, we need to sort of opt for more in terms of methods and forms of diaconia that equip and enable people and communities rather than merely help and assist them. And I think that is already being done, but I think that needs to be done more. And at the same time, the pandemic and in the recent times in many parts of the world, as we wrestle with people's issues, we also come to realize that we are not alone. There are many others partners on the ground in different identities and forms, and they certainly are there as allies to work with, allies for justice, allies for life, in a context where there are networks of hegemonic powers, networks of evil, but there are also partnerships that are possible for us to work further on. So it is in this context, I think we perhaps need to sort of, I, as a person representing Christian diaconal organizations, would certainly sort of focus more on training and capacity building and helping communities and institutions to stay relevant and up to date in order that they are able to sort of meet the challenges of the time. So with these few thoughts, I would like to end this presentation, and thank you once again for giving me this from the perspective of the work that we do.
Thank you so much, Reverend Manchala. We just actually heard from Reverend Chan that you are an active member of the Asia Pacific Forum. So that's also good to know. And thank you for all the work that you are doing through Global Ministries, United Church of Christ. I really liked what you said, that it is time to look for opportunities and God's leading, especially in being good stewards of what He has given us. So thank you very much. We just have a question, but it's not really a question, it's a request from Veni Manikam. And she has said that these presentations have been immensely educational, elucidating, and inspiring. Praise the Lord God Almighty. Could the esteemed speakers pray for each of us and our communities and relational realms to serve others in Christ's strength and sacrificial love, particularly the marginalized, suffering, isolated, despairing, and defeated. Thank you to Veni for this request, and we definitely will be praying for this. I would like to call on Ms. Niti Prasad, and Ms. Niti is from Sevika Sangam, that is from the Marthama Syrian Church Diocese of North America and Europe.
Thank you so much. Praise be to God. Greetings to everyone in the pure, precious, and powerful name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And it's indeed truly a blessing to be a part of this Ecumenical Leadership Forum today. We just wanted to begin with a short history of the Marthama Church. So the Marthama Syrian Church of Malabar has been founded by Saint Thomas, one of the 12 disciples of Jesus Christ, and it's named after the apostle. And Marthama, Mar means saint, and Thoma is Thomas. So we believe it was founded and established in the year AD 52, thereby making the Syrian Church one of the oldest denominations of Christianity. The picture that you see over here is the headquarters in Tiruvalla, Kerala, India, of the Marthama Church, and we have about 1.6 million members all over the world. So the church defines itself as, I'm just going to change the next slide. The church defines itself as apostolic in origin, founded by St. Thomas the Apostle, universal in nature, biblical in faith, evangelical in principle, ecumenical in outlook, oriental in worship, democratic in function, episcopal in character. And so just wanted to talk a little bit about the vision of the motto of the Marthama Church. All the elements that you see here in the shield reinforce the motto of the church, lighted to be light. And each of us are given the light, and we are the light of the world. And wherever God has placed us, to share that light and be a blessing in the community of influence as well. And so a personal note about the CMC Vellore, growing up in Bangalore, not very far from Vellore, I had the privilege and blessing of growing up with both sets of my grandparents who loved to talk about the Lord, and the Lord they loved and knew. And even my mother was a great storyteller. So one of the stories I've heard growing up is about the Scudder family, their mission and ministry in India. And growing up in the Marthama Church, in the Sunday school especially, has molded and shaped my spiritual life. And one of the lessons we learned in our Sunday school textbook, called as the Charioteers of Faith, was Ida Sophia Scudder. And I just have an excerpt from my Sunday school textbook. I still vividly remember the title of that lesson, A Night That Changed a Young Girl's Dream. Not just the dream, but the vision kind of changed the face of healthcare in India. So The CMC Vellore and the Marthama Church have had a long-standing relationship which dates back to several decades, and we have staff and students and a strong Marthamite presence in CMC Vellore. And along with that, we have a lot of members, especially in this diocese in North America and Europe and all over the world, who are proud alumni of CMC Vellore. So we continue our pursuit in ministering to the community of people who are awaiting their medical interventions in Vellore, especially through the Dr. Alexander Marthama Valley Metropolitan Memorial Guidance Home in Vellore under the Chennai-Bangalore Diocese of the Marthama Church of Malabar, located at Shanti Sadanam, Ambala Green City, Fort PO of Vellore. This guidance centers provides various facilities, and especially a comfortable accommodation and in prayerful and homely atmosphere. There's kitchen facility available for cooking, and meals are provided upon request. Various other round-the-clock services, personal assistance are offered. There's pastoral care and fellowship, and bedside visits are carried out. Appointments to CMC are arranged. Van transportation is also provided. So we have a priest that's staying on the campus, and also we have very compassionate volunteers who are offering their time and other valuable services as well. And the CMC Vellore, the Guidance Center, is continuing to spread its wings of care and service to reach out to more people in the community who are in need of health and healing. And so the Marthama Mission Board is the mission board of the North America and Europe Diocese, and it coordinates the mission activities under these 5 missions. And the first one I want to talk about is the Life to Life mission. This project is designed to support education, to provide sufficient clothing, and provide nutrition to underprivileged children. We have our Mexico mission. The Mexico mission is a mission working within in Mexico, in Matamoros, among the fishing community. And here we try to provide infrastructure, housing facilities, medical assistance, and helping them in economic development as well. Negative, also we have our Native American mission, which is a program among the Native American communities in Oklahoma, Alabama, and Arizona, to provide them spiritual resources and opportunities to nurture their faith. The India mission, it serves as a connection for our members to the mission fields in India as well. The neighborhood mission is the outreach carried out by our parishes at the local level at their neighborhoods. And with this neighborhood mission annually coordinates the urban missions, which is mission trips that are carried out to cities like San Francisco, Chicago, Houston, Philadelphia, and Dallas, and other cities. And these mission trips have had tremendous effect and a great impact, not just on the recipient community, but even in the lives of our youth members and also everybody who are involved in these missions as well. I just wanted to talk about the Marthama Suvishesha Sevika Sangha, which is the women's auxiliary or the women's wing of the Marthama Church. It was inaugurated in the year 1919 under the leadership of the late Most Reverend Dr. Abraham Marthama Metropolitan. And Mrs. Kandama Verghese was the first organizing secretary of this organization. She traveled far and wide, establishing branches in parishes and undertaking evangelistic work both among Christians and non-Christians as well. So every Marthama member of women who are above the age of 18 are part of this organization. So keeping alive and active the motto of this organization, service and evangelism in the life and mission of the Marthama Church, this 100-year-old organization is blessed to have nurtured and empowered women of all ages, all stages, and all phases of their lives. And so the Sevya Sangam in this diocese is very active in several missions, and along with these outreaches, the women meet together, and also members from all over the United States and Canada come together at the national conference, which is held once in 2 years. And this past one that happened in Houston in 2019 was a great blessing to all those. So we have a regular attendance, about 500 women who annually attend this, who meet together to study the Word of God, to spend time together in prayer, to sing together, and also to enjoy the greater bond of sisterhood. And, you know, during some of these conferences, we also have the CMC Vellore alumni meeting together, having their reunions and get-togethers during this time. So the recent conference, the theme was from Exodus chapter 1, verse 17, inspired by the lives of Shipra and Puah, the midwives of Moses, the deliverers of the deliverer, and the theme of the conference as women as agents of life. And one of the ministries that the Sevika Sangam supports is the World Day of Prayer. And I'm sure most of you are already aware about the World Day of Prayer. This is a global ecumenical movement led by the Christian women. And the motto of the World Day of Prayer is informed prayer and prayerful action, and is celebrated annually in about 170 countries on the first Friday of March. And our members actively organize these prayer services and participate in them across the globe. And so we continue our long-standing relationship with the World Day of Prayer, and we've been fortunate and blessed to have our members on the board of the World Day of Prayer for the past several years. I've had the humble opportunity to serve on this board. I just completed my first term, and I'm, by the grace of God, serving my second term on the World Day of Prayer USA board. And so as I conclude, God has been so gracious to us and has faithfully led the Marthama Church as we look forward to God's continued grace and mercy in our lives. We are so thankful for the way in which God has led us. We want to reflect back and look at all that God has done in us and in our journey forward as well, and to brought us to where we are today and who we are today. And so these few lines from this great Christian hymn kind of sums up what I have to say today about our journey. Faith of our mothers, faith of our fathers, the Christian faith, that is the truth beyond all our stumbling creed, and that still serves the home and saves the church and breathes the Holy Spirit through our deeds. So faith of our mothers and fathers, Christian faith, we will be true to thee till death. This is our hope and this is our prayer. And also we are so thankful for this opportunity to come together. As I conclude, I want to encourage each one of us with this verse from Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10. For we are God's workmanship, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God has prepared in advance for us to do. So whatever ministry we are called to, whatever is our calling, whether, as members of the CMC Vellore, in healing ministry, in preaching or teaching, God is, continue to inspire us. And we just hope and pray that God will continue to do so in the days to come. So may the Lord enable each one of us to be a light that is lighted to lighten others. Thank you, and God bless.
Thank you so much, Neeti. Indeed, we are God's workmanship, and He has created those works for us. What a blessing, and what a blessing to hear about how the story of Dr. Ida Scudder impacted you as a young girl, and here you are today with us. But also how amazing to hear about the work through the Marthama Church and through Sevika Sangam, the mission work that is carried out throughout the world and also at CMC. So thank you so much for the sharing.
Praise God. Thank you.
I now would like to request John Real, who is president of the Vellore CMC Foundation, and John will give our closing remarks and next steps and call to action.
Deepika, thank you very much. So as we bring today's forum to a close, I want to share my deepest appreciation with each of our prayer leaders and presenters for their insightful and provocative messages regarding several of the most important faith-related issues of these modern times. Having risen to the challenge of navigating our way through the COVID-19 outbreak, we've all experienced our fair share of heartache and concern. but through the guidance of our spiritual leaders, we've been afforded the opportunity to embrace their inspiring messages, namely to remain steadfast in our faith and to remain hopeful that a treatment and a cure will soon be available. As other Christian institutions have done, CMC continues to instill in each of its medical, nursing, and allied health students a set of guiding principles rooted in the belief that the healing powers of Jesus Christ are manifested through each of them, a methodology that dates back to the earliest days of Dr. Ida Scudder's empowering missionary work in Vellore. Ida paved the way not only for the empowerment of women in India, but also for the manifestation of meaningful US organized medical ministries anchored in collaborative relationships developed with many of the Christian organizations that are here with us today. The result has been breakthroughs in medical science, rewarding acts of charity, and sustainable opportunities for an impactful volunteerism. It is due to these past achievements that we can now celebrate the remarkable progress and the heights to which our faith community members are reaching today. For as we continue to focus our attention on doing the right things to provide better care for the underserved, to treat every person with greater dignity, and through our ministries, to strengthen our own relationships with God, we are laying the groundwork for future generations. Global mission work creates opportunities for personal growth, for we each get the chance to give witness to and to benefit from the honesty and integrity of our actions as we give of ourselves to improve the lives of others in the name of Jesus Christ. I want to briefly share with you the words that I recently read. There's nothing more powerful in the world than the human will. For once we believe in ourselves, we can risk curiosity, wonder, spontaneous delight, and every other experience that reveals the human spirit. And in these moments, we possess the ability to face the uncertainty of the future with immeasurable optimism. In closing, I also want to thank each of our forum attendees for your participation in today's event, and I look forward to the occasion that will permit us to come together in person once again to continue in our quest to spread God's word and goodwill through our actions and our praise. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, John. Indeed, we are made in the image of God, and He gives us that will and power to drive forward. Thank you so much for that. And our closing prayer is actually by Jacqueline Walker, and she is mission specialist for Asia and the Pacific, and this is at the Presbyterian Mission Agency for Presbyterian Church USA. Unfortunately, she cannot be with us today, but we have a recording of her song, Be Thou My Vision, which was Dr. Ida Scudder's favorite hymn. And we have this beautiful rendition as our closing prayer.
Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart, not be all else to me, save that thou art, thou my best thought, in day and in night, waking or sleeping, thou presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, be thou my true word, I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord, thou my great Father, and I thy true Son, thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I need not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance through all my days. Thou and thou only, thou first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, when battle is done, grant heaven's joy to me, bright heaven's sun. Christ of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, the ruler of all. Still be my vision, the ruler of all.
I think that needs an applause. That was so beautiful. And on those lovely notes, we end our webinar. I pray that God will bless us and keep us and continue to be our vision and take action in all the priorities that He has for us. I thank you all so much for being here with us and blessing our event.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Deepika.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend Mancha.
Thank you. Thanks, Deepika. The current has just gone off again, so you can't see.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And I hope those showers are of blessing.
Yeah, they are good.
I hope that the COVID will be over soon, that I can come to New York and go to India.
Yeah. We look forward to seeing all of you in person.
Amen to that.
Thank you, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Stay safe and stay healthy. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deepika, for
Thank
this wonderful time. Thank you.
Thank you for the arrangement.
Thank you, Reverend Thomas. And yes, thank you, Reverend Ben.
Thank you.
On a